Its legend spans over 500 years and continues today in both infamy and intrigue. The Shahnameh of Shah Tahmasb is one of the most magnificent and valuable works of art in world history, also known as Shahnameh Shahi, a King's Book of Kings, and the Hotan Shahnameh. The Tahmasb Shahnameh is the definitive edition of Iran's national epic, Shahnameh or Book of Kings, by the great Persian poet Ferdowsi. Created in the 1520s in Safavid Persia, the Tahmasb Shahnameh contains an unprecedented 258 illuminated watercolor illustrations of the epic, with over 700 text folios. Together, they bring Ferdowsi's Persian poem to life in glorious technicolor beauty.
As amazing and famous as the Tahmasb Shahnameh is, seeing it in person is actually quite complicated. You see, the Shahnameh is scattered between 18 different cities and split among dozens of different owners. Different owners, you might be asking. Does that mean I can own a piece of the Tahmasb Shahnameh too? Well, maybe. Once in a while, a folio from the book does come up for sale, but the starting price is around 4 million British pounds. Yes, you heard that right. So, with 258 illustrations total, that puts the value of the complete Shahnameh of Shah Tahmasb at over 1 billion British pounds, or 1.3 billion US dollars today. So, how did an old book of Persian paintings made 500 years ago become so valuable? How did it leave Iran and get scattered in the first place? And is there ever any hope of bringing it back together again? In this short film, you'll learn a little bit more about the complicated history surrounding this masterpiece and take a deep dive into the forensics of a present-day reconstruction effort to put the whole book back together again by Dr. Zahra Faridany-Akhavan, an art historian specializing in manuscript reconstruction. So now, get ready to sit back and enjoy learning about how the Tahmasb Shahnameh, the greatest book ever broken, became the art world's billion-dollar masterpiece.
Let's begin with a concise and abridged history. Shortly after commissioning the famous Shahnameh, King Ismail I, founder of the Safavid Empire, dies in 1524 and leaves the throne to his 10-year-old son Tahmasb. Too young to command armies and run state affairs, the young King Tahmasb instead focuses his attention on the arts. Growing up surrounded by the master painters and scribes of Tabriz and Herat, King Tahmasb brings Safavid painting to its peak and becomes a champion of his namesake Shahnameh. But then, in his later years, King Tahmasb takes a solemn religious oath of sincere repentance for his artful youth. He abandons the artists of his royal workshop, causing their migration to Mughal India, and decides to give away his Shahnameh to the Ottoman Sultan Selim II as a gift for his coronation in 1568. For 300 years, the glorious manuscript remains inside Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. The Ottomans even add inserts in their own language to more deeply appreciate the book. But in the collapse of the Ottoman Empire at the end of the 19th century, the Shahnameh's whereabouts mysteriously become unknown. Suddenly, in 1903, the Shahnameh re-emerges at the Exposition des Arts Musulmans exhibition in Paris as the property of Baron Edmond de Rothschild. Over the next half-century, the Shahnameh stays safe under the careful protection of the Rothschild family. But when Adolf Hitler's Nazi army invades France in 1940 and plunders the Rothschilds' treasures, the Tahmasb Shahnameh is stolen from the Rothschilds' bank vault and taken to Neuschwanstein Castle in Bavaria. The Shahnameh remains there along with thousands of other priceless works of art until the end of the Second World War, when the monuments men miraculously restitute and return it to the Rothschild family. In the aftermath of the war, Edmond de Rothschild's son, Maurice, who had inherited the Shahnameh from his father, tries to sell the complete book to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. In a 1955 letter to the Met, Maurice de Rothschild emphatically defends his price of $400,000 as a small one to pay for one of the greatest works of art in the world. But the Met turns down the offer, even after the price is brought down. When Maurice de Rothschild dies in 1957, the Tahmasb Shahnameh catches the eye of American art historian and Harvard professor Stuart Cary Welch. An ambitious and talented scholar and collector of Persian and Mughal Indian art, Cary Welch successfully persuades industrialist and rare books collector Arthur Houghton Jr. to purchase the Tahmasb Shahnameh for $350,000 in 1959. Eager to be the first scholar to publish an academic study of the book, Cary Welch is granted special access by Houghton to analyze the manuscript. In the early 1960s, the book's folios are unbound so that official facsimiles can be properly taken of them, with the promise that they can always be rebound later. But that promise would sadly never be kept. Through the rest of the 1960s, Arthur Houghton Jr. ascends the ranks of the Metropolitan Museum of Art to becoming its president and then chairman of the board. Then in 1970, to celebrate the Met's centennial anniversary, Houghton decides to take out 78 paintings from the Shahnameh out of sequence and donate them to the museum as a charitable gift valued at $1 million. But when the IRS gets suspicious about Houghton's high valuation of the Persian paintings, they threaten to investigate Houghton unless he can definitively prove their worth. After years of back and forth negotiations to sell the remnants of the book to the Shah of Iran for $28.5 million fail, Houghton auctions off an additional 7 folios through Christie's in November 1976. The auction is an astonishing success. The 7 folios combined sell for over $1 million, more than twice what Houghton had paid for the entire book just 17 years prior. Now, with more than enough proof to satisfy the IRS, Houghton realizes the true value of what he has. From 1976 through the 1980s, Arthur Houghton Jr. continues to sell the paintings from the Tahmasb Shahnameh piecemeal to private collectors, despite global outrage and accusations of vandalism. The sales surprisingly end in October 1988, when a batch of 15 folios sell at barely their minimum prices. After Arthur Houghton Jr. dies in 1990, his son Arthur Houghton III decides to seek a one-off sale for all remnants of the Tahmasb Shahnameh, by now whittled down to just 118 of its original 258 paintings, but with all its text folios and binding still intact. Arthur enlists British art dealer Oliver Hoare, a specialist in Persian and Islamic art, to find a buyer. Through an Iranian archaeologist in Paris named Shahryar Adl, Oliver Hoare meets with the Deputy Minister of Culture of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Dr. Mehdi Hojjat, in 1992. Over the following 2 years, Oliver Hoare and Dr. Hojjat form an unexpected friendship and negotiate a secret deal to exchange the remnants of the Tahmasb Shahnameh with a painting from inside the vault of the Tehran Museum of Contemporary Art, Woman 3 by Willem de Kooning. The details of the thrilling exchange are chronicled in Oliver Hoare's memoir, The Exchange, published in September 2024. But in summary, the Shahnameh folios are exchanged with Woman 3 on the tarmac of Vienna International Airport on July 27, 1994, for an agreed value of $20 million each. The buyer for Woman 3 is revealed to be Hollywood mogul David Geffen, who would later sell the painting to Stephen A. Cohen in 2006 for $137.5 million. The 118 Tahmasb Shahnameh paintings, meanwhile, along with their text folios and binding, are taken directly into the vault of the Tehran Museum of Contemporary Art upon arrival in Iran. They remain there today, packed and locked away underground, out of sight and inaccessible, in the same black leather boxes they arrived home in exactly 30 years ago. Since the thrilling exchange, auction prices for the Tahmasb Shahnameh have skyrocketed. In April 2011, one illustration owned by Stuart Cary Welch broke records after selling at Sotheby's for over £7 million. In October 2022, another folio broke that record by selling for £8.1 million. In April 2023, another sold for £4 million. Dozens more folios could come up for sale at any time, and their prices will only climb up from here. The only question is, how high can they go?
In just 50 years, the Tahmasb Shahnameh went from being a historical object to a contemporary art juggernaut. But can it ever be restored back to the way it once was? Ever since Stuart Cary Welch published his landmark study of the book in black and white, many esteemed art historians have continued work on the manuscript. Most prominently, Sheila Canby, former curator of Islamic art at the Met, was the first to put the illustrations back in their original sequence in this beautiful book published by the Met in 2014. But what about the text folios? Remember, the Shahnameh is above all else a poem. As magnificent as the illustrations are, they were designed to face their text counterparts. Without them, the paintings are missing their context. And that is precisely the problem that Dr. Zahra Faridany-Akhavan has set out to solve.
The Tahmasb Shahnameh folios are scattered all over the world. So often the illustration and its matching text have been separated, and one is in a different country and a different city. I'm going to show you how I am putting the Shahnameh back together again by using the catchwords that indicate which page went with the illustration. This, for example, is the Khalili page, Rostam kills the dragon. It is in London, but its matching text is in New York. The reason we know this is because the catchword here, Beyazdan, matches the catchword at the top of its corresponding page, Beyazdan. And the Met illustration, though, matches the text in Tehran, in the Tomoka. And once again, we have Berun Kard, and sure enough, Berun Kard, it matches it. And this continues. This is in the Tomoka. This text happens to be in the Tomoka as well. And its illustration, though, matches an illustration at the Met. Because this is an R folio, two illustrations match each other, but the same concept. Bekardand and the same Bekardand. The concept of matching catchwords does not change. Its text, though, matches an illustration, the seventh labor of Rostam, that is in the Cleveland Museum of Art. But the same concept, you have Hami Gusht Kand, Hami Gusht Kand. As you can see, the Tahmasb Shahnameh is one big puzzle, and we are putting it together one folio at a time. And with the collaboration of owners and museums, we can reconstruct this magnificent masterpiece and hopefully one day soon be able to leaf through it like Shah Tahmasb did in the 16th century.
Even though physically uniting the Tahmasb Shahnameh is practically impossible, Zahra's method of uniting the book digitally creates groundbreaking new opportunities for the world to better appreciate the masterpiece the way its creators designed. Beyond its cultural and historical significance, this reconstruction is a monumental testament to the magic of technology and, more critically, collaboration. Zahra has spent 4 decades researching and chronicling the extraordinary saga of the Tahmasb Shahnameh, compiling every letter, transaction, catalog, and record she can find, while tracking real-time locations and prices of each folio. Recently, her efforts in reconstructing the Shahnameh have gained momentum and garnered the support of many museums and collectors around the world. And in September 2022, Zahra obtained access inside the vault of the Tehran Museum of Contemporary Art to view the Tahmasb Shahnameh folios and discuss the reconstruction with Dr. Mehdi Hojjat himself.
ببین الان شما چیزی که باید توجه داشته باشید این ضخامت خود کتاب. بله بله. صرف نظر مینیاتور که بیاد توش میشه یه چیزی به این ضخامت.
بله. و ببینید حتی اینا معلوم میشه که صفحه بعدی با چه کلمه‌ای قراره شروع بشه. ببینید. بله. اینا یه روزی میره لایه نقاشی.
اینجا زده چوشا. صفحه بعد اینجا با چوشا مثلا.
بله. ولی الان معلوم نیست چوشا تو کدوم.
آره. این کاریه که قانون دکتر میخواد بکنه دیگه که اینا رو به صورت مجازی پشت سر هم بکنه که ما یه شاهنامه کامل از اول با جلد تا جلد بتونیم داشته باشیم با تمام مینیاتورها سر جاشون باشن. به آقای اسلامی هم عرض کردن مشکل بزرگی که الان وجود داره اینه که غالبا چون عاشق مینیاتورها بودن پشت مینیاتورها که شاهنامه است تصویر نداره. توجه می‌کنید؟ بنابراین نمیشه یه شاهنامه کامل درست کرد. باید اون پشت اینا عکاسی بشه که بعد وقتی میذارن مثل این فضای مجازی نمیدونم دیدید که کتاب و ورق میذارن اونجوری ما یه شاهنامه کامل داشته باشیم که از اول تا آخرش پشت سر هم دیگه باشه.
Ever since its creation 500 years ago, the Tahmasb Shahnameh has survived chaotic times, and reconstructing it is no easy feat. But maybe, with the right combination of work, hope, and luck, we can once again prove to the world that, just like the Iranian people, the Tahmasb Shahnameh is even greater than the sum of its parts.
It's a very complicated story. It's a very, it's a tragic story. It's a glorious story. It's a magical story full of hope. And yet, all of those considered, there's just a light that burns. There's an eternal light within this whole Shahnameh that is kept itself alive. And it just, I think, just brings joy to the museum, to the people who know about it. And the more you know about it, the more you love it, the more you're fascinated by it.